It's 2:47 in the morning. You're staring at the ceiling, doing that thing again. Running the conversation from Tuesday on a loop. The one where you said the wrong thing to your kid, or your boss, or your mother on the phone. You've got a best friend you haven't called in 8 months. You know his number by heart. You're not mad at him, you just haven't called. And somewhere in the back of your head, you're starting to wonder if there's something wrong with you. I'm Frank, and I want to walk you through what's actually going on in there, because the story you've been told about yourself is mostly wrong. Start with what you actually do, not what you feel, what you do. You take long drives with the radio off. You sit in the parking lot for 10 minutes before you go into the house. You reread emails 4 times before you send them. You replay arguments from 1997. You think about your father's face the last time you saw him. You think about a decision you made when you were 26 and what your life would look like if you'd gone the other way. You do all of this while loading the dishwasher, while driving to Home Depot, while pretending to listen on a Zoom call. That's the behavior. Now go to the brain. There's a network in your head called the default mode network. Bad name, but stay with me. It's the system that lights up when you're not focused on a task, when your mind is wandering. Except for some people, it doesn't really wander. It grinds. Researchers have linked rumination, that's the clinical word for what you do at 2:47 in the morning, to activation in the core default mode network, and especially a region called the medial prefrontal cortex. That's your brain's self-referential thinking hub, the part that thinks about you, about your past, about what people think of you, about what you should have said. For a lot of guys, that network doesn't have a clean off switch. More recent imaging work points to something even more specific. In people stuck in brooding rumination, connectivity inside the default mode network goes up, and connectivity between that network and the task positive network, the part of your brain that's supposed to take over when you actually need to do something, goes down. In plain English, the overthinking engine revs higher, and the brake that's supposed to redirect you to the task in front of you gets weaker. So when you're standing in the kitchen at 11 p.m. and you meant to grab a glass of water, and instead you've been standing there for 4 minutes thinking about your brother, that's a network, a measurable one. You're wired hot. Now, why does this hit you specifically harder than it seems to hit other people? Here's where the second layer comes in, and it's the part nobody really talks about. You are, in terms of pure logistics, in one of the worst possible moments of your life to also be a deep thinker. A lot of you are sandwich generation, caring for kids and aging parents at the same time. Recent caregiving research from AARP estimates somewhere around 16 million Americans are doing it. The average caregiver is in their early 50s. Intensive caregivers, and a lot of you fall into this category and don't even use the word, are putting in something like a part-time job's worth of hours every week on top of your actual job. So picture it. You've got a brain network that won't stop processing, and you've got a life that is genuinely, materially heavier than it was supposed to be at this age. Your mother's medications, your kid's college, the roof, the dog's vet bill, a parent who didn't plan on living this long, money conversations with your folks that haven't happened yet. So you're doing the math alone, in the car, in the driveway, in the dark. And here's where it gets interesting, because you'd think, given all of that, you'd be miserable. The story everyone tells about you is that you are the damaged generation, the forgotten middle child, the cynical one. The data says something different. Long-running research that tracked people from this generation into midlife asked them to rate their own happiness on a scale of 0 to 10. The average came back somewhere around a 7 to 8. Only a small slice reported being significantly unhappy. Read that again. A small slice. The people you assume are quietly drowning are, by their own report, mostly okay. Better than okay. They're sitting at a 7 or 8. So how do you square that with the 2 a.m. ceiling stare? Like this. Stress and unhappiness are two different things. You can be stressed and still be living a life you find meaningful. You can be running a default mode network on overdrive and still, when somebody asks you the actual question, are you happy with your life? Answer yes. Because the thinking isn't ruining the life. The thinking is part of how you process the life. The deep thinker is running diagnostics constantly, and the diagnostics are mostly coming back, yeah, this is hard, but it's mine, and I'm doing it. Before I keep going, I've been working on something on the side, a book called Psychology of Gen X. It gets into a lot of this, the stuff that got wired into you young and what it's doing to you now, the patterns you can't quite explain about yourself. Links in the description if you want to look. And to everyone watching and sharing this stuff, genuinely, thank you. If you want to go a step further, there's a Patreon too. Subscribers get early access to videos with no ads, and you help keep the channel running. That link's right there as well. QR code's on screen. Okay, back to the friend you haven't called. AARP put out research on men's friendships in this generation, and the finding was sharp. Men in this age group tend to keep their best friends for life. The bond doesn't die. What dies is the contact. They don't call. They don't text. They go months, years. And when they do finally talk, the conversation lives in what the researchers described as high passion, low vulnerability territory. Sports, music, politics, the state of the Knicks, the new Springsteen record, what the government is doing. Not, I've been having a hard time. Not, I miss my dad. Not, I'm scared about the biopsy. On the surface, that looks like emotional avoidance. That's the easy take. But put it next to what we just talked about. If your brain is already processing constantly, running self-referential thought, replaying, analyzing, working through, what does a phone call to your buddy need to be? It doesn't need to be the processing. The processing is already done. By the time you'd call him, you've already lived the whole conversation 3 times in the car. The call, when it happens, can be about the Knicks, because the deeper thing has already been handled. Alone. That has a cost. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it doesn't. The AARP framing was that these guys are lonely and need to be more social, and they're not wrong. Processing alone takes a toll. The 2 a.m. ceiling stare is part of the bill. But it's a coping system that made sense at some point and got reinforced for decades. You learned to handle it in your head. You got good at it. You got so good at it that calling somebody to talk it through started to feel redundant, slow, inefficient, even rude, like you'd be dumping a problem you already solved. There's behavioral research that points the same direction. For men in your generation, when social media use turns compulsive, life satisfaction tends to drop, and there isn't much of a buffer the way there is for younger guys. Researchers connect that to self-reliance as a defining trait for men this age. You handle it yourself. That's the pattern. When the handling it yourself goes sideways, like scrolling at midnight instead of sleeping, there's nothing in the architecture to catch you, because the whole architecture is built on you being the one who catches things. So now you've got the whole picture. A brain network that runs hot. A life stage that is objectively heavy. A friendship style built on long-distance loyalty and short-distance silence. A self-reliant setting that's basically welded shut. And underneath all of it, a reported happiness number that, somehow, comes in at a 7 or 8. What do you do with that? First, and I want you to actually hear this, stop treating the thinking as the problem. The thinking is the operating system. It's been running since you were a kid. It's the thing that made you good at your job. It's why people trust you with hard decisions. It's why your kid, when something actually serious happens, calls you and not the other parent. The deep processing is a feature. It comes with a tax, and the tax is the 2 a.m. ceiling. But the feature itself is doing real work. Second, the friend. You don't have to call him to open up. Lose that framing. It doesn't fit. You can call him to talk about absolutely nothing. The Knicks. A guitar he should buy. A trip neither of you will take. For two men who've known each other since 1986, talking about a baseline at midnight is the vulnerability. AARP can call it low vulnerability all they want. The contact itself is the message. You don't need to translate it. Third, the sandwich generation math. Have the conversation with your parents. The fact that most of you haven't actually sat down and had the money talk, that's the one that should scare you, more than the brain scan stuff. Because the rumination at 2 a.m. is partly your brain trying to solve a problem with missing information. Get the information. Ask your mother what she has. Ask her what she wants. Ask her if she has a plan. The conversation will be uncomfortable for about 4 minutes, and then it'll be the most relieving thing you've done in a year. Half the ceiling stare is your default mode network running simulations on data it doesn't have. Give it the data. Fourth, and this is the one almost nobody says, the deep thinking, the long drives in silence, the parking lot decompression, the rereading of emails. That is, for a lot of you, where the actual good stuff in your life comes from. The fact that your kid feels safe with you. The fact that your team at work trusts your read on a situation. The fact that when something breaks, people look at you. That came from somewhere. It came from a brain that doesn't stop processing. You weren't supposed to be the loud one. You were supposed to be the one who noticed. Quick thing before I go. Psychology of Gen X came out of doing this channel and realizing all these topics connect into one bigger story about how you got built. So to everyone who was able to get it, or anyone thinking of getting it, thank you for supporting the channel. Genuinely. If you're looking to get it for yourself, scan the QR code on screen right now. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. There's another video right there on the screen. Go ahead and tap it.